Hello, everybody. Welcome to Angelo Hasty and I's podcast right now. We're going to call it the Coronapocalypse because of everything
What's going
happening in
on?
the world right now. This is my great friend that doesn't, well, he kind of looks like Jesus, and he's probably as mythical and as strong as Mr. Sir Christ himself.
I'm going
Angelo,
more for
would
like a
you?
Jared Leto vibe.
A Jared Leto. Wait, that is true. I like it. With the hat, too. That is a Jared. That's a hard Jared Leto vibe.
Hard
Angelo, you
Jared
want to give
Leto.
a
Little
want to give
Daffy
a quick
Duck.
intro, baby? You want to give a quick
Yeah,
intro?
bro.
Give us,
Hope you're enjoying the end of the world as much as I am.
loving
Currently
on my
right now,
couch.
oh yeah, dude, listen, 14 days staying in the house. I've been
I'm
wishing
not
for this.
complaining.
Yeah, I'm not complaining yet. When I get bed sores now.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm out of Philadelphia. I'm a scientific trainer, so I basically train manufacturing
Nice.
scientists, R&D scientists, viral vector scientists. And I got my degree in chemical biology. So
I love that. And where you want to tell the people, since people will probably get spooked by this, where do you currently reside / work? What city?
Oh, oh, that's hilarious. So I actually work in
That's funny.
Philadelphia.
I
I
love
work
that.
for Wuxi Advanced Therapies. Full disclosure, our corporate site is in Wuhan, China.
That's what I wanted to hear. I love
Little
that.
little mic drop.
Little mic drop. And if for
That's a
people that
mic
don't
drop.
know, Wuhan is where they say, right? That originated the
Yeah, that's the
COVID-19, the
epicenter.
coronavirus, right? All
Hubei
right. So
province around Wuhan, China.
Jesus. All right,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
I mean, I guess we'll get, like
Super
I said,
fun.
I think people that know me who made this podcast, physician assistant student, always pursuing my academic best as well as excellence and trying to stay up to date with the real world and talking to somebody that I think is of higher stature than me. He's smarter than me and he's better looking than me, but don't tell my girlfriend that because he might steal her. So, Angela, I'm happy you're here with me, buddy. I'm not gonna lie.
By the book, Brian.
I
Always,
love that.
always a pleasure.
Always
Always
a
a pleasure.
pleasure. Haven't seen you in a while, but it's okay. I guess we'll get started real quick. Kind of what I told you. Me and Angela obviously did a little run up about this, so we're gonna go through a little timeline of the 2019 novel coronavirus. So December 31st, so right before New Year's, and a no, oh my gosh, a pneumonia of unknown etiology emerges in Wuhan, like you said with your
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing company and everything. So then January 3rd, Chinese authorities alert the World Health Organization. A group of 44 patients now have this weird contagious pneumonia that they can't figure out stems from what. January 7th, Chinese authorities isolate what they now know as another form of a coronavirus. Then
Yeah.
2 weeks later, January 20th, January 20th, there's 282 cases that are now confirmed in China. Then 10 days
Not
later,
great.
January 30th, yep, first confirmed case in the US from a patient that traveled from China. Then February 10th, over 42,000 people are infected. Over 1,000 deaths occurred. It has now spread to 25 countries. So when it stayed in Wuhan, right, it was an endemic. When it started
Yeah.
spreading to various places within China,
Once
in a
across the
country or two, it was
border.
an epidemic. And now, because of the country range of various
Yeah.
entities, it has now been considered a pandemic. The U.S. has
146 countries.
crazy. And the U.S. has
Yeah.
over, is it 100 or are we in the, what is the U.S.? Do you know exactly where we are right
The
now?
U.S. currently has 13,000 cases.
13,000?
And I believe I do not know how many deaths. Honestly, I don't have that
Right.
number. But I just
I
saw I just saw an
Right.
article about it.
I got you. And I could tell you in our, well, because you're from the Scranton area. In Scranton, there's about 3 confirmed as of right now. And I think that number
Yeah.
is escalating,
Oh
as
yeah.
well as by the time we recorded this, of course. And then I think it
It'll
could
be
count
way
one.
different.
In Montgomery County, from what I heard, we were talking about this before, right? They have
Closed. Like
closed.
50 cases, something like that.
That's wild. That's
The
wild. So I
state has
guess
something like 157 or something.
that's wild. That's wild. So
Yeah.
we're getting there, which is horrifying. All right, Ange. So I guess start with that. So what about you? When did you find out? What was your reaction? How did you feel? When did you start thinking things are getting serious?
Things
Well, I
are
guess
getting
give us a
bad.
little.
So I started I listen to podcasts every morning. I listen to NPR, I listen to Up First.
Right.
And they started talking about this new, pneumonia like, this pathogenic pneumonia, so to speak, I guess, just kind of traveling amongst China in the Hubei province around like December. You know what I mean? Like probably end of November, early
Right.
December. And it was coming through December. And I was just kind of telling myself, I'm like, you know what? This kind of just reminds me of SARS from 2003. I'm going to be as polite as I can here. They're not necessarily the most hygienic. They're not practicing
I
hygienic
agree.
to the point that the CDC and like the United States, kind of, excuse me, drilled into our skulls. I know
I
you
agree with that. Of
personally have had nuns teach you to wash your hands, just like I did.
course.
Right? They were pretty adamant about it. I didn't start getting a little more nervous about it until I realized that the contagion was actually spreading like really quickly. Like it had a really
Right.
high transmissibility rate, and it started traveling across the globe. And then we
Right.
were realizing how long it could stay alive on surfaces. And okay, well, was this contaminating all of the cargo and all of the things, all the people that we were
Right.
getting from China into Europe, into Africa, into everywhere, United
Right.
States, all of it.
Hmm.
So it started getting nerve wracking right about there.
Right about there.
So like
Yeah, I would.
January.
Right. I, like I said, I guess you could say I'm in a clinical based field. I learn about this stuff. You have way more expertise with your background, but I took, microbiology, biology
Yeah.
courses, biochemistry course, stuff like that. But
Oh yeah. They were
I
fun.
I, I heard right, yeah, they were a blast. I I heard in January about some novel virus being out in the open and affecting a lot of people. Then towards the end of February, around my sister's birthday, I remember I remember things started getting serious. I think in the timeline I had before for us, it even said that we started getting a case within the United
Yeah.
States. And then I started to realize this is more contagious than the influenza
Yeah.
virus, and that people were saying, that's when articles were happening here and there. Oh no, it's just a hand washing disease. It's just people that are dirty. It's nothing to worry about. But then I was remembering this is like genetic drift because I think you could attest to it, right? Like a virus is pretty much a non-living genetic piece of material, right? That doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
It just stays where it is. It's stagnant. And if it's moving from different countries, I remember they said China, then went to Italy, and then obviously a ton of other countries that we, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I said, this is getting serious. And I remember posting up there, and I know you did too. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
serious. Um, and I guess that's around the time I did too, which is
Yeah.
unfortunate because where we are now. But I guess we could even talk about that. What do you think the mass media, how people originally or even up to now has been treating the coronavirus? What your thoughts really on that?
I think that because now currently we live in a post-fact world where everyone has to be right, and you know what I mean. You can throw. There's a lot of conjecture and everything. Like, is the
Right.
sun hot? People will argue it's not. You know what I mean? Like anything
It's not
that
that hot.
it's not that it's warm. All
It's
right. Like
warm, but
what's
like it's
hot
like
for you?
lukewarm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's really just a matter of like that argumentative society we currently live in. Your side has to be right. You have to be right, and no one's everyone's afraid to just be like, you know what? I actually don't know about this. Like we are men of science. We don't know
Yeah.
everything. So like we have bit that bullet, and we were like, you know
Right.
what? I'm gonna learn what I can, and I am completely comfortable with the fact that I don't know it all, and that's okay.
I
But now
agree.
we're dealing with people who know it all. So it's like, oh, it's a little
They
different. So, they know it all. But I think the mass media, the hysteria is coming from where you have and I'm not getting political here. I'm pro who's ever in the chair party. Okay, that
right.
means that if
I agree.
whoever's captaining the ship, I need him to get me to port safely as possible. Do not hit any coral reefs. Nothing. Um,
100% agree.
if he took this a little more seriously, we probably wouldn't be in this position. However, once he did start getting, taking it seriously, that that demographic of people who are very, this is not a big deal, this is not a big deal, that were following really behind him.
Mhm.
Once he like actually humbled himself and he's like, okay, guys, this is serious.
Right.
The fabric of the reality split. You rip the carpet out from under them, and
Right.
now they're just on their ass. They're like, boom, and now just constant. And I don't know if you've taken probably like a psychology course or something, right?
Yeah, of course.
Constant stimulus of the same thing is going to make you like neurotic about it. You know what I mean? Like you can't escape
Absolutely.
it. Now you're going to go to the store. Now every business is talking about COVID and what they're going to do to help. And it's like, whoa, like, you know what I mean? It's actually picking up some steam.
I know, and I agree, and think you and I also talked about how mass media sells. Whatever's the biggest
Oh, yeah.
headline you could think of, like I said before, hand washing disease, just wash your hands. So then people are
Yeah.
saying, oh, yeah, you just wash your hands. But then we could
You're going to
contradict
have
that.
that rhetoric. You'll have
Yes.
that rhetoric that is, you're going to have those people who are like, let me run this site with this article that says the, and I will say this because what the article says, will probably say
Right.
something like the Chinese virus, isn't that serious. It's a false flag operation, whatever. And will make money on ad revenue, you know what
Right.
I mean, for putting ads on that site as clickbait. You know what I mean? You give like a
Agreed.
really big Oprah Winfrey arrested for double homicide. You know how many people are going to click on that? You know
A
what I
ton
mean?
of
A lot
people.
of people are going to click. So when you have that big wow factor, it could open up an ad to a Nordstrom's base. You know what I mean?
That's what
If
I mean.
everyone
You don't.
clicked on it and it opened up that web. So it's all about the title. It's all about this just nonsensical article. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
having no basis, no sources, written by someone who probably shouldn't be writing about this.
Agreed.
Like,
No, and
not
and
knocking
that's
them.
that's what I totally agree with you on, because when you look at these articles being published, and I'm not knocking, I think you and I agree with this. I'm not knocking or disrespecting what your profession is,
No.
but you and I are men of science, which is why we need replications. We need proof too. We need to see what your licensure is. Have you published previous works that were similar to this type of idea or type of realm, like etiologies, disease processes, viruses? And a lot of the stuff that people would share on Facebook, I would click, and at the bottom, buy. I would look them up or see what their credential was. And it would
Mhm.
be like advocate writer for science or current science matters. And I was
Yeah.
like, what title is that? So then you type in their name. They have a bachelor's degree in journalism, English. Nothing, they probably write better than me and they could probably construe their thoughts way better than me. But that doesn't mean,
Way,
just
way
because you
better at
look at
articulating.
articles, yes, just because
Yeah.
you read the article doesn't mean you're actually abstaining and understanding what's
Yeah.
happening within that article. Like, we know correlation coefficients, we know p
Yeah.
values as statistical significance, we know
Yeah.
when something matters and when something doesn't, as opposed
Of
to them,
course.
they find one thing, boom. Hand washing prevents this, that means it's a hand washing disease.
That's when it's a hand Washington. Oh, it's on the back of a Lysol bottle. Oh, the government's known about this. This
Forever.
is a
This is nothing
man-made.
new. Right.
This is nothing new. This is just the government with population control. It's like, oh well, everyone's gonna click on that because now it's cool to be an anarchist. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's cool to be that edgelord and be like, oh, you know what happens when everyone wants to non-conform? Everyone's conforming.
Forming.
You
We're
know,
always
so
against the ideal. We always have to.
always gotta be against the tide, which is like I respect it, but like there is to a level where you're like, all right, let me back up real quick. No man-made virus has that type of affinity with its S domain, its S1 domain rather, and
Right.
ACE2, angiotensin. What is it?
Converting it.
Angiotensin converting enzyme,
Yeah.
angiotensin converting enzyme 2. It's 20-fold stronger than SARS-CoV-1. So to have that type of affinity from a man-made type of viral vector, like we would love that. Like that would be over
Absolutely.
the moon. You know what I mean? But we can't even get that type of affinity. That's only like a natural selection type of affinity. You know what I mean? That is
Right.
just going to naturally develop while you have in vivo things working in vivo. That's just
Right.
it's nature. Bio 101. You'll learn
Bio
all the
101.
rules of bio. Okay,
And
basic
it's
biology, they say. It's basic biology. But did you go to the next course? Because the next course tells you all the rules don't even fucking matter. Because
exactly.
all the rules are broken. Just
Yes.
like the English language. Oh, like you'll never do that. Flip the page. But what about this? Well, that's that. Oh, all right. So wait, we'll get to that. Like, well, that's that one time where we do
That's
use
what
it.
I mean.
You know.
And
So it's
that's
not
what gets me
basic bio. It's advanced biology. And I
biology.
get it. You guys probably didn't get through soil in 5th grade. It's hard. There's clay in there, all
Yeah,
right?
of
And clay's
course.
a Play-Doh, and blew their minds. You know what I mean? But
No, yeah.
you and I sat through micro. I sat through
Right.
virology. I sat through neurobiology. I sat through classes that I never would have imagined taking. Okay. And like
Absolutely.
just the type of things that people say, like, oh, it's man made. Oh, it's not naturally occurring. Like, you're showing to me that you might not have all the tools necessary to actually form a, an opinion based
Right.
in fact, based in truth. You know,
Right.
I don't pretend to know a lot about finance. I did not do that.
Right.
I cannot tell you what to do with your IRA. I don't even know what that means.
I don't even know what that means either. I'm gonna be
I don't know what
honest.
that means. You know what I mean? I do know that CoV-2 doesn't use any other cell binding receptors like DPP4 or aminopeptidase N.
Right.
Okay. Now, to an investment banker, I just spoke, Egyptian. You know what I mean?
Right.
A Klingon. You know, that's what they sound like to me when they talk about investment banking.
Right.
So it's like, know your place.
Right.
That's why
And
you
that's what I
have these
mean. Like
people.
and it's funny though because then I think about it when you have like a technological problem. Instead of being like, I'll call the IT guy or whatever, you're like, I'll do it myself. And like the thing is, should I really be doing this myself? Like,
Am I
you know what
gonna
I mean?
break
And
my
the same,
phone?
that's what I mean. Like, same goes with this. All right, I don't really know about viral pathology or anything like that, but
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I just read an article. It said wash your hands, so it's not that serious.
Yeah, it
And
can't be that serious.
that's what I mean. And
Lysol
like that,
kills it.
Lysol kills it. Then I mean, I could kill it. I just got to take
This
a
didn't
shower.
exist 4 months ago. Like,
That's what people don't understand about the word novel. Like this type of strain has not been seen before. And that's what I think
no,
people are getting confused with. You know what I mean?
novel means it never existed in a human being before.
Right.
It was always this variant never existed in a human being. Um, this particular virus, so the disease, so COVID-19 causing severe acute respiratory syndrome is
Mhm.
caused right now by SARS-CoV-2, which is a variant of the SARS-CoV-1
Cold one.
virus that affected SARS in 2003. It has a 98.6% similarity between a bat coronavirus's RDRP sequence. The gene for it's coded RATG13. All right. So none of that makes any sense to
I just say
layperson.
so.
Okay.
So it makes sense to us because we know it can't be man-made as a bioweapon. Is pretty much
We
what you're
know
saying
that
too.
if it has that much of a 98.6% similarity to the genomic sequence of the attachment domain of bat coronaviruses, knowing that in SARS 2003, it also had that type of, you know what I mean? So it was like
Yeah.
SARS-CoV-1 also came from a bat, then got transferred to a cat, and then got transferred to a human. So there was like an
Human.
actual, like, there was a third party.
Right.
This we just believe came straight from a bat. We didn't even
Right.
have to worry about from bat to cat to rat.
Did you hear?
Uh,
I heard that, but I also heard somebody talking that they think a chicken may have gotten into fecal matter, break it down, poop of bats, right? A
yeah.
chicken was eating bat poop, and they also think that maybe that was where some of the virulence came from. And the guy
Live
didn't eat just a bat,
virus.
maybe a chicken. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense or no?
This live virus stays alive for 9 hours in fecal matter. So this would have to be another, let me just say animal, any animal, a dog,
Right.
a cat, a beef, or cow rather. I'm sorry, beef,
Right. So you're
a
good.
pig,
No worries.
anyone really eating it. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
come in contact with this thing. So let's say hypothetically, for all intents and purposes, a bat lands on my desk, and takes a shit, okay, and
There we
has
go.
this, and basically has the bat equivalent of a cold, okay?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the bat equivalent of a coronavirus, all
Right.
right? Has never existed in humans. This variant of the virus never existed. I touch the railing that live virus was on, and then my
Right.
eye gets it. Or I think I have a cavity, so I went to go check a cavity. Well, now I
Right.
just broke the mucosa membrane, and now I just infected myself. So you don't have to eat a bat soup. You don't have to have a bat land on you and bite you.
Right.
You can just be in the wrong place in the wrong time and touch the wrong railing, or touch the wrong piece of fish in the
Piece
Hubei
of
province because
right. And I didn't mean to cut you off quick, but my
no.
sister who lives in Los Angeles just sent me, as of right now, the Mayor Eric Garcetti, if I'm pronouncing that correct, just issued a safer at home emergency order. All residents of LA need to stay inside their residences and immediately limit all movement outside of their homes. He's saying unless you're essential personnel, he just put that out there too.
Wow, wow, that he's just telling everyone
It
to stay
starts,
home
yep. So it starts
and
tonight.
start.
California's 3 hours back, so it's about 6:30. It's effective as of tonight at 11:59 p.m. until at least March 31st.
Yeah,
So that's
that's
that's a
crazy.
headline. And to be honest, we could even play off what we just learned right now. That was kind of wild. A nice little live update. I think. What do you think in terms of what we've done as a country to kind of I think we're backtracked. I think that we knew what happened in China. We knew Italy was getting bad. I think we could have made an order saying let's quarantine quicker, let's shut down businesses quicker. what California just did, let's limit all residences to their homes. I think the best way to stop a pandemic is to limit our exposure to the virulence of the virus or people that
Yeah.
are contagious. I don't know what you think. That's what I think. I don't know.
I think it's basic. It's basic logic to assume that when you have a contagion out there, which remember we have an R coefficient of 3, all right? So we have
Okay.
influenza R coefficient of 1 for
Right.
those lay people who are not epidemiologists. R coefficient stands for its transmissibility coefficient. So
Right.
it's the factor in which if I had it, how many people could I give it to in a specific social setting, right?
Right.
So if it has a coefficient of 3, that means one person gives it to 3 people. Okay. So if you do deliver some
And
type
that's
of
what I was gonna
social
say, not to cut you
distancing,
off, right?
yeah,
What was that called? The like how contagious, right, a virus is. I think you
are
had a
not.
nice R not, right? And that's what people are getting confused too with influenza and I guess you could say corona, because the R naught is double, if not triple, right? Like you
Yeah,
said
triple.
before, it could spread to 3 people, as opposed to influenza is typically one other person, right?
Just
That's
one
why
other
this is so
person.
scary, right?
Well,
Because if one
besides the
person can
fact
transmit,
that, well, besides that, we've been inoculating the population with flu vaccines since 1940. We've
Mhm.
had studies done since we found the first virus, 1933, which was the
Right,
influenza virus. Okay, so we have studies on this virus that has been in humans, that
right,
hasn't changed much since 1933. So you could
right,
assume that in 85, 90 years, better part of a decade, or I'm sorry,
right.
better part of a
Very good.
century, it didn't change. This did not exist 4 months ago. So you have
That's what
no
people
data.
don't
You
understand. Yeah,
can't inoculate the population with last year's COVID-19. I didn't
right.
have it. No one had it. Didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. So you have that herd immunity, I believe they call it,
Herd immunity.
where
Yeah.
you've been inoculating the population for so long that they're just naturally now selected to have those antibodies that will be able to recognize flu antigen.
Right. And I was getting curious because kind of what you were saying too, and I thought it was a good thing to bring up. Wuhan, like we were saying, where most of this arose from, where it all started. It's a
Mm-hmm.
population of 4 million people, or 8
Yeah,
million people to be exact.
8
8
million.
million. Sorry about California, the whole, like literally Los Angeles, because Wuhan is a city. The city of Los Angeles is 4 million. Wuhan is 8 million.
Double LA.
And
Double
so what,
LA with no LA infrastructure.
for sure,
Like nothing.
right. And so, like you were saying too, with the herd, like there's a lot of cases that are documented. But
Mm-hmm.
Italy, for example, they have like a 60 million population. We're like in the 300 something, I believe, million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah.
We saw how bad it is
335.
over there. We saw what happened to Wuhan, which, yeah, I guess on a global scale is way bigger than us as well. But we have, if you think about it, a demographic smaller and a demographic bigger than us, and we're in the middle. I don't understand why we didn't cultivate and do a plan that we literally had evidence for both for a good amount of time, and we could have had an emergency readiness plan. That's what really gets me. You know what I
I
mean?
think I think a huge problem with this, and I might be really like this is a lot of conjecture here, right? But I'm gonna
Right,
go with it. So you have SARS-CoV-1 in 2003, right?
right,
Infecting a given population in China, killed about 800 something people, I believe, 888,
right,
and it stayed within the localized region. Okay, so what did China do? They developed a booster, and they gave all of these people last year's CoV-1. Okay, so
mhm,
now the population of people over 17 years, okay, has now like an immunity towards CoV-1 because
right.
they've been inoculating with
Played it.
vaccine. So the
Right,
kids of those people that got vaccinated, okay, or got that booster, will have a natural immunity towards it, or a more
right,
of a, you know, what I mean, their immune system will be more um, efficient. Okay,
right.
that only happened in China. So now we have SARS-CoV-2, which is a variant of that. So now, if you've noticed that it wasn't affecting a whole lot of kids in China, but it's affecting a lot of kids in Italy, it's affecting
Italy.
kids in France. I think it's because those people, the babies of that generation that got vaccinated with CoV-1, their IgA from their mom is probably more heightened towards coronaviruses.
Right,
Americans didn't need it.
right,
Belarusians didn't need it because they weren't getting affected by SARS.
right. And
So I
IgA,
think
just for people that don't know, immunoglobulin A, right? It's like an
it,
antibody
yeah,
kind of within the system. Right.
yeah.
That helps
So
fight. It's like
it
your
just
body's defense, right? Pretty much what we're saying.
It's the way that the
Right.
body, it's basically the immune cell's eyes to see
Right.
what's pathogenic and what's not.
Right. And
So
what I
if
tell people too, from like, but you definitely know way more than I do. But a good like story I say to people, especially when it comes to kids, is like immunoglobulin, an antibody, is I refer to it as like this blind specimen in your body that is your host, your
yeah,
cell's defense mechanism, and it kind of like feels you up. It feels all the curves, edges of a virus or some bacteria, and it says,
hmm
"Oh, this is I don't know, let's say this type of influenza. I'm going to call the cytokines your defense mechanisms. I know how to eliminate this process, whether it's through like phagocytosis, and then it eliminates it from your body." But I say to people too, then they're like, then how do you get sick? Well, if it's a strain or some ailment that you never had before and enters your body, it starts filling it up. It's like, I don't know what this is. Or
these
sometimes, as you
things
know, viral things
change,
can fake. Yes, they could fake it, pretending it is. Your body knows what it
fake
is,
it.
right?
Yeah,
That
they
it's a
can
part of
fake
your
it.
normal immune response system, and then it gets into your bloodstream and
They
it
can
goes into your
secrete.
cells.
They can secrete cytokines that the immune cells will be able to recognize as just
Right.
self protein, and they'll just kind of move on, kind of like Harry's invisible cloak.
There we go.
The symptoms are the immune system. So
Yeah.
where you have innate immunity, where virus breaks in, you know what I mean? Your immune system will send basically advisors, okay, just like when the Americans did with Nam, okay? We sent advisors in to look around and, check in the trees and see, like, what's going on here? What are we working with? You know what I mean? What do they got? What type of weaponry? What type of safe act? You know what I mean? Send them in.
Right.
And sometimes with innate immunity, it actually ends up covering it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's enough firepower there that they can cover this. If there's not, similar to Nam, okay,
Right.
they have to call reinforcements in. So what will happen is a macrophage will actually envelop cell protein or the viral protein
Right.
and run to the draining lymph node, run to lymphatics and say, look, this is what they're doing. This is what they have. We need firepower here. So
Right.
now B cell and T cell development in your bone marrow is now
Right.
coding for these antibodies. They start attaching to them, and now then they send in like the big guns. Okay, so now here's like, you know what I mean, actual B-52 bombers. Okay,
Right.
carpet bombing sections of the jungle. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're That's adaptive immunity. Is when the reinforcements come. So innate immunity doesn't really cause them any symptoms. Neutrophils die, it causes
Right.
pus. You know what I mean? Basophils, get
Right.
overrun, and phagocytosis. All those secretory enzymes can cause inflammation. Adaptive immunity causes a fever, causes
Right.
night sweat, causes like other it basically diverts all power. So like I'm going
And I
back to
like.
that.
Right.
I'm going back to Nam. All the factories in America, they weren't making what they were making. They started making guns. They started making ammo. They started making toilet paper. Ha ha ha. You know what
Right.
I mean? Things for war. They were war ready. So that's what happens in the body.
And
Okay,
I like
that's
what you
that.
said too about adaptive immunity, because I think that's something that people tend to overlook. When you get an ailment or a sickness, it doesn't cause you to have, let's say, like diarrhea or watery stools or a fever. That's your
It's your
body's
body.
immune system producing that to get rid of the ailment. So it starts
Get it out of here.
thermodynamically increasing your temperature within your body to eradicate it, which is what? A fever of a high
A
temperature.
fever.
If you have
Exactly. They want to burn
cholera,
it out.
right? If you have like cholera, so you're going to say like shitting out very bad stools consistently, that's your body trying to get rid of whatever that bacteria is and
Whatever it
whatnot
is, clean
through
it out
excreting it through a watery, yeah.
any
So
way it can. It'll come
that's
out of
what I mean.
any
Because
orifice it chooses. It just has to get
yes,
out
it
of
just
there.
gets out. And I think
Yeah.
people mess that up with symptomology, you know what I mean? But a lot of people, I think it's a good question to ask you specifically. The last major pandemic was pretty much, as everyone keeps saying, the 1918 flu, Spanish flu.
Spanish
I
flu.
think there was over 500 million people infected at that time, which was,
Yeah.
I believe, a quarter of the population at that
Third, a
time.
third of the world.
A third of the world. That's crazy. And
Yeah.
I think out of that, like 50 million, 50 plus million
50
deaths.
million died. Yeah. 625,000
So,
Americans died.
right. And if you do that math, right, it is actually a lot. It is a
Yeah.
lot. But it's kind of like how I feel like is getting treated with the corona. It's just people are looking more at the recovery rate. But me and you talked about this before. I don't think people know the exacerbation or how strong getting in a pneumonia is. And that's a mild case, right? We were saying
Yeah.
technically as of right now, the CDC considers a
So
mild case pneumonia, and that is not a good. Yeah,
not
what you're
even
saying.
just pneumonia. No, not just pneumonia. Hospitalized pneumonia.
Pneumonia.
So you're in the hospital. A critical case is a hospitalized pneumonia case that needs a ventilator or needs oxygen. So you could have pneumonia and be in
Right.
agony for 2 weeks in a hospital bed. That's mild. As long as you can breathe
That's
on your own,
insane.
and it will hurt and it will suck and it will be tight in your chest. If you
Right.
could do that for 2 weeks and keep oxygen regular, that's not severe. It's not critical,
See,
according to CDC.
that's what
People
gets
don't
me
get that.
mad.
Oh, 80% are mild. Well,
That's
even if 20% are critical, with 94,000 ICU beds, with only 100,000 ventilators, with 335 million people in the world, 20% of that get infected. We're looking at like 42 million people without a ventilator, without a hospital bed, deemed critical.
exactly.
Not even including the mild cases that still need to be there. So what happens to your car accident victims? What happens to your drive-by shooting victims? What happens to the guy that fell down the stairs? The old guy from the Life commercial. I've fallen, I can't get up.
Right.
Well, bro, I don't actually have a bed for you because everyone has a
As one.
super.
And that's what happened in Italy, right? They started making ICU immediate response like ventilators and stuff like that within like hallways because they couldn't even and people died because they couldn't even get to the and that's another point I guess which would be like our next segue of topics. I hate that rationale and I'm not gonna lie I tell everyone this I blame we're technically are we considered Generation X? We're not millennial. I think we're Generation X technically, aren't we? We're 24.
I don't think we're 24. I was 95.
I was
I think
95
that
as well.
we're right on the
We're
border
like on the
between Gen
brink,
X and
right?
we're the end of millennial.
We're like the
I
end of
consider
millennial,
end of
beginning. It's like end and beginning, right? So
there's no
regardless,
really
I
defined
was gonna say, but
area.
these two generations, I'd say at least, we are the reasons to being the carrier. So somebody that has this contagious virus, corona, because if you saw, I remember I saw on my Facebook as soon as they came out, practice social distancing, try to keep your space. People were throwing parties. I
Yeah.
remember making a Facebook status, which got a lot of backlash, which I find really funny. There was a Pits and Parade, and I said, "Is it a good idea to have social gatherings?" And this is like a month ago already, which is crazy. Is this a
Yeah.
good idea, kind of, to have social gatherings still going on? Is this something we should take maybe a little more seriously? People were like, "No, just wash your hands. It's really not that complicated." They would send me these articles, like I said, that had really no statistical significance, and it's just no matter what we were told to do, we just didn't listen. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
We just didn't want to keep social distancing. We did, and that's why I think we need to get the quarantine as nobody leave their house unless you're essential personnel instead, because
I think it's a
nothing is going
lot
to stop
different
this.
when
This
yeah.
isn't not to cut you off, but I think that some people think I've seen people say I'm going to parade day like in Scranton, as you know,
Yeah.
thousands of people go there.
So
That
many.
was in the midst of the corona outbreak, and people were just they didn't care. They thought they were invincible, and
Didn't
then
care.
I think of like people are looking at this now like all semester. Oh, my semester is getting canceled. Dude, this is a free time to drink and hang out with my
Spring
bros
break.
or hang out with my girls. Time to get.
Spring break
This
till
isn't.
June.
This is a pandemic. This is something
So,
that causes deaths. This is something that makes you very
who
sick. This isn't a time to have fun. You know what I mean?
who number one, who will never say pandemic lightly? I think that's very
That's what horrifies me. I agree. Oh, we have a
yes.
pandemic. It's whatever.
So like you remember in Breaking Bad? Did you watch Breaking Bad?
I ended. It's such a good show. I literally saw it
Okay.
literally probably 3 months ago. Amazing.
Spoiler alert. All right, but anyway, if you watch Breaking Bad, the one scene where like the kid gets poisoned and Jesse's running in, say, "Tell him
Ricin.
ricin,
Right.
ricin," and the cops were like, "So when you said ricin, you know what I mean? That's way too specific. You know what I mean?"
Right.
So we're dealing with something here that has such a high. It doesn't even need to have a high mortality rate. Having a mortality rate in general tells me that the probability of that going up is there. There is a
Right.
probability there. You know what I mean? So you don't even want it in the population at all.
Right.
I personally believe that you're going to need to have a high level of quarantine in order to keep people distant from each other in order to stop its transmissibility.
Right.
I don't believe that that's like a, you know what I mean? If martial law gets enacted, let's say, I do not feel as an American that my rights are being infringed. The reason why is because this is a pandemic. Okay. So just like that ricin, they're not just going to say it's ricin because they know that some guy behind him is going to be like, when you say pandemic, right? Like, really? You know, oh,
Right.
ricin, like, dude, that's not something like that's not rat poison. You know what I mean? Or that's not like
Right.
I drank too much cough medicine. I got to call poison control. No, or like I drank a little bleach because I was doing my laundry and it splashed in my mouth. No,
Right.
that's ricin. So I think that I don't feel like my rights are being infringed upon because this is about a human thing. This isn't
Thing.
146 countries.
And
We have to kind of bring ourselves up a little bit and be like, you know, stop this shit because the
what
probability of it getting worse is there.
and that's
As long
that's
as
like
it's
you
there.
said. I like that you said like we're humans. Like this is our response. It's the thing is that kills me too is this isn't no more. We'll go to the fatality effects. That's something I want to say too. The fatality rates are at 3% now, and I think influenza's at 1, which is another contradiction that people keep putting up. No, it's not. It's lower than it was lower. It was when it first started. That's where these articles are, where they're like the fatality rate is point. Now, do I also say there is leniency where it is? It is typically elderly people, or if you're immunocompromised. Immunocompromised, you have some sort of condition that you can't really sustain immunity, so you can't breathe correctly, like with an asthma or COPD condition,
Yeah.
or you have HIV or AIDS, where you're compromised in terms of your immune system. You're neutropenic, so you have an abnormally low white blood cell count.
Neutropenic.
Um,
Neutropenics. That's good.
neutropenia. That's what it's called. That's a nice big medical term for abnormally
That's a
low white blood cell count. Use that. Use
that's a
that. Have
term
fun
of
with it.
terms.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
neutropenic, baby.
Use that one.
But my thing is, I can be clean. I can wash my hands. I can sanitize when I'm out in public. I can do all I can. If you're running around saying that this thing doesn't exist, it's my responsibility to take care of me, but it's also your responsibility to take care of me. And likewise for you, I have to take care of you by being the best I can. And do you know what I'm saying?
It's
Some
just like the
people are like,
vaccine argument.
yes,
It's
exactly.
only as efficient as the amount of people getting it.
Getting it.
Not a lot of
Not
people.
just you getting it, it has to be the people, the counterparts as well.
That's
And
why
that's
I hate when
mhm,
people are buying all the dish soap and buying all the hand soap.
right,
You need it, yeah. You need your guys to have it too. Like
right.
your friends have to
That's what I
wash their
mean. You
hands.
can't
Your
take
neighbors have
10
to.
and leave me. Yeah, that's what I mean. It doesn't work like that. That's
It doesn't
why,
work like that.
and we'll talk about that in the next segue, I guess, too. But I have elderly grandparents. My grandmother, she's very
Yeah.
ill. She ill. I mean, she has a lot of
She's
ailments
ill.
that are
Yeah,
not.
she's sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so she's immunocompromised. I don't want
Right.
you to run around like a jackwagon, come in contact with me accidentally wiping my face, or and like you said, we're talking about virus or dead particles that have genetic material. I could leave it like that. I think there's a steering wheel
You could
example.
leave.
I'm driving, leave it there. I swipe it up because I drove your car. Now it's with me. I bring it home.
Now
I
it's with
touch my face.
you.
Now I have it, and then I bring it to my grandmother's house. And then she'll most
Yeah, he
likely
has it.
she'll die.
Well,
I
remember
don't. You know what I
that
mean?
remember that a lot of the articles that were coming out, a lot of the words that were coming out about, um, that it's not affecting younger people and that it's only affecting immunocompromised.
It is
That
now. You were
narrative's
telling me, right?
changing. The
Yeah.
narrative's changing now. Now that was coming out of China, where, and I'm not knocking them once again, a lot of men, okay, a lot of older men and a lot of younger men, they smoke a lot. They have a very poor air quality index. Okay, they don't really have
Right.
solid lung health. You know what I mean?
Right.
But not a lot of kids were dying, and that was like my argument about SARS-CoV-1 and how
Right.
they might
Right.
have had a herd immunity. That's
Right.
leaving. That narrative's changing. So now it is to a point where you have a virus that, even if it wasn't doing that, it still has a probability to
Right.
mutate, start really doing some damage. And I made an argument. I know it's actually pretty crazy, but you know what I mean. It's morbid. How many kids people need to see die from this type of virus before they realize we might have let it go too long? Now,
Yes.
at that point, everyone's going to say we didn't do enough. Right now,
Right.
people are saying we're doing too much. Now you're overkilling it.
Yes.
There is no Goldilocks. It's relative to the time. So like, if 25 kids die,
Right.
I'm completely random number. Terrible. Okay, you don't want to.
Of course. You
But
don't want anyone,
is
right?
that when it's going to trip? And it's like, okay, let's do something now. Well, now the cat's out of the bag. That train is at the station. Now there's no, oh, we should have done more. Well, you can't have both. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't
Exactly.
overreact and underreact at the same time, just because it's convenient for you to overreact now. So I think that, and going back to the mortality rate, oh, flu's killed more people. Flu data has been around since 1940. We've been doing data.
Literally.
Like, you know how you establish a trend? You know how you
Yes.
establish a really great trend? The more
How?
data points.
Yeah.
The more points you have on your line, the more precise your curve is.
And there's always going to be outliers. That's what I always start saying with this
Always
too.
going to be
Yeah, like you're going to
outliers.
find something that contradicts, right? Somebody might
But
not
if you're
have
going to get it
corona and
right.
not show symptoms, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So when you have stuff that you only get data points from 4 months, okay, in China, and there's only 2,000 cases, you don't have a whole lot of data points to really get you that good R squared, to get you that good correlation, to do
And
those
you want R
statistical analysis.
squared, and you want R squared to be closest to 1 as possible, right? When it comes to
Yeah,
R squared, right?
Yeah. If your R squared is close to 1, it is indicative of
Correlation,
not
right?
causation, but
Correlation, big difference, right?
correlation does not cause
It was
causation. But
causation.
you can establish a trend and make a prediction. All of you economists out there who do stock trading do this. We just do it a little differently because we work with viruses.
Right.
You guys work with numbers. So it's very
No, exactly.
So that's why the mortality rate, when people say, "Oh, it's killed more people," yeah, well, the mortality rate is low because it's infected hundreds of thousands of people more than it killed.
Yes.
Compared to here, it's like it's killing a proportionate amount.
It is, which is scary here, and and I think it's safe to say, and I think you would agree with me. It's people are like, are we in the middle of it? Are we almost done with it? We haven't even really started.
It didn't even.
We haven't really even felt the infection of the viral particles actually contaminating us yet. There's cases, but we haven't actually reached numbers that are going to show statistics. Yeah.
Average incubation time is about 14 days.
14 days.
It's between 2 and 24 or 2 and 28. The average is 14, which means that if I infected you with the virus right now, it would take you 2 weeks to start developing symptoms. It also takes 2 weeks for you to go through the symptoms, assuming that you don't obviously get critical pneumonia, okay? Because at that point, we don't even have an antiviral yet, so we're going to do, it's more palliative care, so like the down pillows and down comforter and, very big room. So
there's nothing, that's what I try to say, I mean, you kind of brought it up before, which is like something I found cool, like a little pharmaceutical thing that my friend sent me, like a research article. It was like, you're talking about how the ACE site, right, the angiotensin converting enzyme site, is where pretty much which protein, the S protein, or was it the P protein? Which one?
So you have an S protein with 2 domains,
right.
S1 and S2. S1 domain is your Velcro. So I'm going to think of it more like a Velcro and like a zipper. So the S1 domain, when it binds to ACE, okay, it's going to cause cell attachment. So the virus will now attach to the host cell, all right? When the S2 domain binds, it creates a zipper and it unzips the phospholipid bilayer. It opens up the membrane, causes a membrane-bound vesicle. So a boil, if you will. You know what I mean? Like a little, mass on the side. As that happens, now it's becoming a cytoplasmic vesicle. It's actually breached the host cell. Because SARS-CoV-2 is a positive single-strand RNA virus, it will hijack the machinery, the polymerase, okay? So the machinery of the cell that produces the cellular proteins, okay? So the host proteins that it needs to. It'll hijack that system, break into that factory and say, guys, we're not making that anymore. We're making more of me. And then that host cell will start making more of the actual virus.
Right.
It's that initial binding that causes that membrane fusion, that causes that effect. So I think we were talking about ACE inhibitors, although
ACE that's what,
they're trying to inhibit the virus attaching.
So I was going to say, so like the complex where the receptor site is that why the article is thinking that ACE inhibitors, like I said, this is like theoretical, they're thinking ACE inhibitors. So they pretty much dilate and allow blood vessels to open up and allow easier blood flow to occur, right? Yeah. They think that maybe releasing where the receptor site is, well, not like, I guess not, obviously, not like a clear-cut way to kill corona, but as a way to alleviate symptoms, maybe I'm thinking. It's all theoretical, but...
if you stop the rate of which a cell gets attached to a virus. So if you lower that rate of cell attachment, we have a virus, right? We have 10 viruses attaching to 10 host cells, right? That's going to cause 10 host cells to make brand new viruses, all right? Those host cells are going to cause immune responses like your neutrophils or basophils that are going to come and are going to die there. You know what I mean? It's going to phagocytose as much as it can. It'll cause that inflammation. It'll cause that pus. If you lower the rate at which the virus attaches to the host cell, well, now you don't have any more that many affected host cells. So instead of 10, maybe you have like 2. You don't have that many neutrophils and basophils. You don't have that inflammation to that high of a level. So that's where I think ACE inhibitors would stop coronavirus from attaching, which it needs to attach to proliferate. It could also alleviate the symptoms. But I don't know. I mean, with the older generation, the people who are really affected by this, ACE inhibitors, and I am not a diagnostician. I am not a symptomatic type. You know what I mean? I'm not MD, none of that. I work with the molecules of it, so, and I work with the cells of it. So I don't know if an ACE inhibitor in a person with 85 years old with COPD, that might do more damage than good.
Right.
So,
but then here's the correlation I'm making.
Because you're going to lower blood pressure.
Right. In ACE inhibitors, that's the point, right? It's to open the blood flow, so it releases the tension of how hard the heart has to pump blood and whatnot, right? Yeah. So, and it's funny because one of the risk factors being immunocompromised is if you have diabetes, which this helps with diabetic nephropathy. So like kidney disease kind of caused by diabetes is what that really is. And a heart condition. Those are risk factors. And it's funny because ACE inhibitors help promote somebody with these deficiencies or these illnesses, go from their stunted living back to normal living. Yeah. So then it's like, I feel like ACE inhibitors could actually be a potential, I guess, therapeutic response for the body, but I don't know. There's not really much articles done on it. Like I said, it was just one pharmaceutical thing my friend sent me. So that's like something I want to know. And then I liked how you brought up too. It was like a while back. The age. I guess now we're seeing more deaths, I guess, occurring
in younger people.
Right, with younger people. But the thing that I think is really weird is how, I don't know if you could attest, but I've seen a lot of things. If you're under the age of 18, though, it's like hepatitis A, right? Hepatitis A is like there's pretty much hepatitis A, B, and C. A is like, I'm not saying the one you want to get, but it kind of is because it doesn't turn into a chronic illness. So it doesn't last 6 to 8
you're gonna get any of them.
It's more short term. It affects the liver, stuff like that. But for some reason with hepatitis A, right? If you get the virus, you don't. If you're an adult, you get the sickness, you get the fevers, the fatigue, the liver pains, all that stuff. What occurs with the liver. But if you're under 18, they find that you could be positive for hepatitis A, but you don't show any of the symptoms. You're not actually in pain. You're not which I think is really weird because that's like similar to corona from what I heard. They think that, like I said, we'll talk about this too right after. There's no really specific diagnostic test, but somebody as a child, I think there were children that were diagnosed with corona, but they don't really show the typical symptomology that people older have been showing. You know what I mean?
I think that might have to do, and like I said, full conjecture here. I think that it might have to do with that innate immunity versus adaptive immunity, and how if and now I've taken an immuno course, and it was a very hard course. It was very difficult. But we talked about how when you are in the womb, okay, when you are a baby in the womb, you rely on your mother's immune system in order to help protect you. You get high doses of immunoglobulin A, IgA, okay, which helps you with respect to being susceptible to known pathogens, viruses that the mother was introduced to. So if the mother has had a cold, or maybe the mother was introduced to hepatitis A or something like that, the kids, the next generation, will have more of a resistance towards it. So it might be that, and I'm going back to SARS-CoV-1, okay, back in China, where that with the first population that got inoculated, okay, or had antigen or had antibodies that recognize that antigen, well, the baby is going to get those antibodies, okay? It's going to get those immunoglobulins. So that helps the child, as it develops, attack pathogen easier, more efficiently, in innate immunity. They don't need to recruit those people. They don't need to go to adaptive immunity, which causes your fever, which causes your coughing, which causes everything else to like expel out. You know what I mean? Like it's basically like full evacuation, just get everybody out of here. You know what I mean? So maybe that might have something to do with it.
That's my correlation. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
when we're talking like an educated guess, I really enjoy trying to make the most educated guess as possible, because I realized that when I was in school, if had I done that, I would have gotten a lot more right answers during discussion. Because I
I was
just
gonna say
sat there.
that might have benefited you a little more, right?
I just sat there. I was like, "Fuck, I did know that." And like no one else did. Damn it, you know. And like that's the worst
Right.
feeling. But like that's how I would go with it. Like, oh, you know, their system is just more. They have a better antivirus software. They're running better softwares.
Right.
This is, you can make the analogy that this is like just softwares. It's just a
Right.
bunch of ones and zeros. Genetic codes are ones and zeros. It codes for your Google Chrome. So if you type in Google Chrome and you hit enter a bunch of times, okay, it's going to keep coming up Google. But in coding, it's known as a parity error. And the numbers scramble, and you get an error 404, server not found. Okay?
Right.
That's what happens with a virus. It's a
So
stew of proteins and other nucleic acids and stuff, coding for certain things, and then a parity error happens, and it's not coding for that thing anymore. Now
that's
it's
not
coding
good
for
then.
the error 404.
Right.
And that error 404 is going to affect another cell, and another cell, and it's going to split. It's going to cause a bunch of error 404s. And then now your lungs are failing, you know, and now your organs are failing. It's like, what the hell's going on? It's been coding for Google Chrome this whole time. You know, why can't my internet browser open? It's like, well, because parity error. And now it became a whole mess. Thanks.
And that's pretty much how it is too, because a virus like corona is just genetic material, RNA, right, that goes into your DNA sequence and alters the RNA sequence. And
It
that's when
hijacks that
right.
polymerase,
And then that's where all this, I guess you could say, mess kind of happens, which is unfortunate.
slides itself right in that little pocket,
I
and
like
gets
the error
unzipped,
message.
and this gets read. Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
horrible.
good.
But
But
I guess too, like the thing is that some of the stuff that happens occurs because there really is no point of care testing. I think we kind of discussed this too over the phone a couple of times. I think people keep thinking that you're going to go into a medical facility and find a medical diagnosis, which I think I
yeah,
forget who it was. It was the woman that spoke at Trump's thing, his national emergency address, like last week. This isn't a
part of
point
the
of care testing. And a point
yeah,
of care is just going to a facility with the symptoms and all that stuff and getting a medical diagnosis. Kind of like figuring out if you're pregnant, all this stuff. This isn't it. They're going to
no,
take a nasopharyngeal test, which is pretty much, con swab up to your nose, try to reach your
scope
esophagus, stuff
codes.
like that, because that's where they're highly contaminated. And what that really rules out that people are forgetting to understand is that's really just trying to rule out if you have the flu, the common influenza virus, as opposed to corona. If that comes back negative because they put it through a machine, they get a piece of RNA wherever they
You
swab it
run
from,
your PCR.
PCR, and then they get an output, and that output will say this and that. But it's not conclusive because you heard there are cases where they were like, "You're negative." Person's like, "I still feel kind of sick. I'm actually feeling a little
Yeah,
worse." Goes back to like, "Oh my God, we're sorry." There's been a lot because we don't have a specific diagnostic measurement of what to look for, which is what
no,
people are forgetting. And you know what's really scary that I found? I think maybe you would probably know this too, is that with influenza, right? I guess when they do like a nasopharyngeal test, you'll find, especially when they're like coughing and showing basic symptomology, a good amount of the virus, like in the throat. With
yeah,
corona, they found out that when you swab that, there's millions of this type of virus particles in your throat before you're even exuberating or showing, displaying like
yeah,
coughing and major
yeah.
symptoms. That's why it's highly contagious too, because when you feel perfectly fine, me and you right now could be perfectly fine. I feel good. I don't know about you, right?
I
We
feel
might have,
fine. I
you
feel
feel fine, right?
allergies.
We might have, you have allergies, right? We might have millions of
Mm,
these little viral particles in our throats right now that
it's
through
true.
droplets, one of the transmission methods, talking to somebody, could go on them, and we don't even know it because we feel fine. Now they're going to get it because
Now
we
they
take
get it,
it.
and that's why your R naught is so high. Because some people who are
That's so scary.
carriers are asymptomatic. Um, the flu, for those that aren't aware, the flu virus sits in the sinus. This sits in the lungs. So it will start coating down into the
Right.
lungs, whereas the flu coats up,
It's up, right?
goes up and in. This coats down. So that's really interesting that there's that many in the throat at such an
Millions of
early stage.
before you even start coughing, they found out so far.
My major concern, and this is real, this is some real shit here.
Mhm.
If you wanted to go and get tested for coronavirus at a time, you know, this might be different. tomorrow. This might be even different today.
You
But
don't
at a
know.
time, like in the beginning of the week, if you wanted to go get a coronavirus test, they test you for strep, they test you for flu. When both of those came back negative, they told you to go home like you had leprosy. And it's like, well, does that
Yes.
mean that I have it? And it's like, it's a pretty good chance. You should probably get out of
Right.
here. Because, like, I don't really want to touch you anymore.
And then that's
You know
what's
what I
said with
mean?
the treatment protocol. It's really just to go for 2 weeks. They're like, just make no contact with anybody. Go hide in your. And the thing is that I feel like people forget if you're getting diagnosed, right? People are mothers. People are caretakers of their parents. People have
Mm-hmm.
kids. What do you, and first off, we don't live lavishly like NBA players, right? Because I heard someone say, "Oh yeah, Kevin Durant, he has a positive case for corona now."
He just
Oh,
got a
that's easy. He
test.
just has to go in his he just has to go to his room.
His agent.
And first off, they have tests way more available because we don't get those tests as available. We have to go through like a concise construment of we were
I
ill
could
for this
only
amount of time.
imagine. I could only imagine what their contracts look like. So, like, imagine, like, you sign a workman's contract to,
Right.
you get certain things and stuff. Their NBA contracts probably have a clause for, like, if a pathogen or if some type of sickness were to be affecting the players and they're all in such close proximity, that testing will be made available to them. At
Right.
no expense, and it'd be available. And, like, remember who owns these teams? You know what I mean? Like these big
Right.
bankers. Big.
Absolutely.
Some of them
Billionaires,
probably
really.
own. Yeah, but some of them probably own 40% stock in, GSK or one of the other places that are making this fun of these PSRs.
Right.
So they just quick call to their agent and they're like,
Put
bro,
high
get me the
priority in
guy
this
who works at
person, right?
GlaxoSmithKline. Yeah,
Right.
give me the guy that works at GlaxoSmithKline because I need to test 60 of my players.
Money
And
buys,
it's
man.
like,
I'm
I need
telling
the
you.
whole staff tested. I need everyone tested. And they're just like, absolutely, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cuban.
Isn't that crazy?
And now
Money buys,
compared to
dude.
me, I'm not going to be able to, have that
We're not a
pull. But,
priority. Yeah, yeah.
Now, listen, that just tells me that there are more out there than what we're reporting. So we
Yes.
reported as of today 13,000 cases. That's more than likely a lot more. That is very, very.
What people forget is that these are confirmed cases. So these are getting the testing and then saying this is a confirmed test. We're sure of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people, like I just said, who are getting misdiagnosed. They're going home, and then these people have cases. So this is just like an approximation, is what people don't understand too.
And they come in waves.
Yeah.
From people who have the virus, they'll feel fine. They'll get sick like they've never had the flu before ever in their life. They'll even say they're like, this is not flu. I know flu. This isn't flu. And then they feel fine. And then they feel shitty again. And, it goes on and on, this back and forth battle for like 2 weeks.
And that's what kind of scares me too, because this is like a bell curve, right? Like anything in terms of research. So we're seeing a high number of people, especially now that the genetic drift, like I said, coming from other countries into ours now that had corona. We're going to see a spike of people with corona. But then what scares me is what I try to tell people is I saw somebody, some scientist, whatever, I think it was the Joe Rogan podcast. He said, like, people are thinking that this is like a corona snowstorm. This is a corona winter. It's not leaving anytime soon, and it's going to be here for a while. And what scares me is if it mutates or it's going to come back. I personally think it's going to come back by winter 2020. I'm scared because there's always a resurgence, right? I think, as you know, where the bell curve scoops up and goes back down. But then at one point, as it goes down, it comes back up because you think you're done with it, you eradicated it, but people still have the symptoms or they have a different mutated strain, and now it's going back into the population as a new novel kind of. It's a corona, but it's a new type, right? Yeah.
CoV-3, CoV-6, CoV-12, CoV, all the other CoVs.
And I guess that's something.
COVID.
I guess one thing I wanted to get to is everyone keeps saying, "Oh, the temperature is going to affect it. Once we're in warm weather, it's gonna get rid of it." I don't know who got that right.
Generally speaking, viruses, especially of this class of virus, generally speaking, have a very low heat resistance, but a very low humidity resistance. It's more humidity and moisture than the heat. So as you know what I mean? Take, for example, the cold, all right, a rhinovirus, all right? Rhinoviruses happen in the winter. Okay, that's why they call them the cold, the common cold. It happens a lot more in the cold. And then as spring starts coming around, not a whole lot of people are getting colds. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't necessarily die. It just lies dormant. It kind of hibernates. It's like a reverse hibernation. It comes back when it's cold. You know what I mean? So, sure, I hope God, by then we have boosters, so we have increased antibodies we can inoculate into the population. If this thing starts getting a humidity resistance, it's proving that this thing is literally mutating as it's shifting in the environment. If it's starting to mutate in tandem with environmental changes, we are way behind. We are too behind.
And see, that's what scares me. What I tell people, because this, I think, people ask, and like I said, I think you could agree, we're not epidemiologists. We don't study these virus parts. We don't get paid to do that. We don't study this. You almost to that tier, but me no. And people are like, when do you think it's going to end? I can't tell you, because
it's a cyclical virus.
To me, this is like evolution. This sounds weird, but I believe this is like Charles Darwin called it. I think, on The Origin of Species, his book that he published made sense. He talks about genetic drift, which is what I keep bringing up, right? And then natural selection, right? Survival of the fittest, stuff like that. Yeah. If you think about it, if you're immunocompromised, you're weak, feeble. Unfortunately, you're not going to survive this. Yeah. If you're, there haven't really been cases studied, but pregnant, I'm assuming it might have fetal effects on the baby or maybe the mother. But survival of the fittest, like we are literally going through an evolutionary type dynamic, and that's what scares me, because I don't know if you know this already, but antibiotics are becoming very I guess you could say therapeutic, because bacteria have become very resistant to typical antibiotics anymore. It's literally becoming a very rare commodity. And that's why with your field, I think CRISPR, right? CRISPR might be the new medication. I keep saying, well, we're going to alter gene sequences and stuff like that, because CRISPR might be the new thing when because antibiotics, I think, are going to become a thing of the past. I really think, or we're going to have to think of new ways to stop bacteria from trying to infect us.
I think that I think that's very interesting that you brought that up. I think that the way that bacteria changes, just like virus changes, just like it mutates,
right?
Bacteria gets way more resistant to these antibiotics. Just like, now you don't see penicillin anymore. You see ampicillin, you see amoxicillin, because penicillin will work, because
penicillin was like the OG. It was like the original. Penicillin was like the everything.
Yeah, exactly.
And our bodies we transmit genetic material, which our bodies not only encapsulate, but then bacteria is like, wait, I've seen this before, like this type of thing before, and it learns. Like people forget that bacteria. Exactly.
So when you have something like that happening, you made the mention of evolution. Evolution, right. and I hate the stigma of evolution, because everyone thinks that evolution, when you talk about evolution, it's people, changing over time from Homo habilis to Homo erectus to Homo sapiens. Right. You know what I mean? No. Evolution is everything. Evolution is plants, fish.
We have ties.
Viruses.
I believe they're called cladograms, right? Like they show you your ancestry pretty much. We have
phylogenetic trees and things.
We literally have genetic similarities back to, I think it's like some sort of eel, like some sort of spineless eel.
Like an eel.
Yeah, like that's like think about that. That makes
our greatest common ancestor, I think, is like an eel.
An eel,
a really old one, yeah.
And people don't think about this, but I was shocked. I remember my genetics class, I learned about this. Who do we share? I think it's more than like 95% of our human genome with, and why we used it, or why we test them. Mice. We literally share more than 95% of our human genome with mice. We literally genetically are almost equivalent to mice, minus for 5, and I think dogs are up there too.
We're 5% away from being a mouse.
A mouse. Yeah, like think about how nuts that is. Like that's literally insane.
That's why mouse models are so amazing.
So that's why we use them as model organisms, right?
In vivo, they're model organisms, because you can make a lot of them.
But I guess too, because we're already at like the hour mark, so I don't want to. But some quick things I want to do too with you. We're almost done. If anyone watched this other than our moms, something else.
Yeah, true.
Anyways, hey. I guess what about some of the myths or the truths behind what is your take on masks?
Okay, so masks would really help older people and people who are already sick.
Agreed.
Aren't leaving their house that much, because obviously if you're sick, you can transmit the virus when you cough and stuff. Agreed. So it might be able to protect it. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be kind of from that moisture, that aerosol.
And if you don't know how to use this stuff, like aseptic technique, you can't just wear it. Don't sell them out, because the way you take it off too, if the virus is on it, now it's on your hands. I think that makes me cringe.
The minute you open up the mask, Okay. Now I train people to don level 3 and level 4 gowning and go into biosafety labs. Okay.
Right.
That are more sterile than an OR. Okay. With a particle, you can do particle counting in these biosafety cabinets. There
Right.
is not a particle 1 to 0.1 microns large. So for reference, a strand of hair is 60 microns. So we're talking tiny.
That's even
Okay.
tinier than a strand of hair.
Yeah, tinier than a strand of hair by like 60 times.
I
Okay,
was gonna
just
say
one.
that's like 1/60th of a
60
strand of
times,
hair. Like that's
yeah, 1/60th of a strand of hair big. Okay, so when you want to put those on, you actually have to get qualified every year to put it on sterilely. They
yeah.
actually plate you and see if there's any bacteria or any colonies growing. So when people want to like open up a mask and they think that that's going to help because they're in their kitchen, you're not in an ISO 5, ISO 3, or ISO 8 airlock
Right.
to put it on. You don't have laminar flow pulling all the particles to the ground and pulling it out of the room. You don't have mag gauges that have the differential pressure to push everything out. You know what I mean? You're in your house. Like, it could be in your house, you know? So
That's
the
what I
minute you open it
mean.
up, it just protects other people from taking it. Gloves, I think, might help, but
I agree.
here's what happens with the glove. I put a glove on. I touch the virus. It's on my glove.
Right.
I got changed my glove immediately. So how many times are you gonna change your gloves? Every time
Close.
you touch something?
And
Every
there's
time?
proper
That's
way
a
of
lot.
disposing gloves from what we learned
Yeah.
in the medical field too. Like you can't, so you
Just
don't
throw them
just
away.
because you don't just do it like this. Yeah, and they have to be in red bins for proper
Yeah,
waste
your
hazard materials.
biosafety,
And you
biohazard.
can't the way you take it off. You're not supposed to like just be like because then you're
Yeah.
contaminating yourself. Like that's what people don't understand. If you
You
don't know how to
cover
actually
over.
properly, yes, if you don't know how to properly dispose of the stuff, then you shouldn't probably be using it to begin with.
No, not at all.
I think the resurgence for toilet paper is definitely needed. I mean, we have bought so much. I think that's the funniest meme. I'm sorry, I lose
I
it.
think
I lose
I
it.
think
I go through. I went to Walmart today. My grandfather and I saw no toilet paper. I lost it. I
it
go, this is
is it
wild.
is it is a different type of sociology. Okay.
Yes.
Now now
Social
for me, I'm a
scientists are probably
homebody.
losing it with this. Social scientists are
I'm
probably loving this. I'm going to be honest.
I'm a homebody pooper. Okay.
Yeah.
I poop in my house. You wanna know
Right.
why?
Why?
Because if I ever got anything fecal matter on any other part of my body, my hand or anything like that, I would not use just a napkin to wipe that off. I'd
Yeah.
wash my hands. So I need to
Yeah.
be able to take a shower or like, the Badeau,
The video.
So like I think that the toilet paper, like, no one's buying food. When are you gonna go to the bathroom? Are you gonna go to the
Yeah.
bathroom if you don't have food? You don't need that much. Do you have running water? Take a shower. That might even be better for you. Because
That's what I'm
as far as I'm
saying.
concerned, if I got shit on my hand, I'd wash my hands. I wouldn't
Yes.
just wipe it off. You know what I mean?
Wash them.
It doesn't change just because it's back there, yo. Like,
Exactly, man. That's what
that's
I'm
grody.
saying.
That's grody. I'm
It
a
is.
strong advocate for Cottonelle flushable butt wipes. All right, I
I
call
love
them
that.
Charlies because old English they used to
I
call them
call them
Charlies.
Charlies.
Not knocking any Charlies out there, but I do get it. I keep a pack of Charlies in my house
Yo, you
sometimes at
kill
all
me.
times.
Yo, you kill me, bro. All right, Ange. Well,
That's real though.
this was fun, but look, so we can limit it down. We're already an hour and 10. Final
Yeah, true.
remarks, I guess. What? It could be anything. It could be one last piece of advice from you. It could be an overall statement. What do you want to talk about? I guess. And like I said, we may do more. Who knows? But what do you have to say to the general public or someone specific? Anything about the
I think
coronavirus?
I think that I'm a perfect example of now taking this seriously and humbling myself and saying, look, I didn't take it seriously in the very beginning because
Absolutely.
it needed to progress, and it has progressed. You know what I mean? Seeing is believing.
Absolutely.
Okay. There's an old Russian proverb: trust but verify. Okay.
I like
So
that.
trust the system. All right. But verify that everything makes sense. Okay. So
Yeah.
if the system is telling you to stay home, there is a good reason. Okay.
Right.
And we can verify that reason. So it's not infringing on your rights. Okay. This is something more. We are not in, this is the new normal. All right. This is the first time that the US government will have to tell their citizens, especially now in a very polarized, political climate,
Right.
to almost infringe on their rights, on their like inalienable life, liberty,
Absolutely.
pursuit, all the freedom. All right, listen, we got to preserve those by preserving you, so you have to stay in your house. All right, it's nothing. You want to be an anarchist? You want to be an edgelord? Good. Do it in your house. That's it. You give us 14 days so we can further assess this, so that way we don't have it mutating further in the
I
population.
like that.
And that's my soapbox. That's my TED Talk.
And that's my TED Talk.
That's my TED
I
Talk.
I would totally agree with you. I guess mine, because you kind of made a lot of good points. It's just like an overall view of what we've done, or what we talked about, is that this, like you said, the World Health Organization, the WHO, the CDC, these agencies are playing with us, saying that this is a pandemic. So that means that it has spread across the globe, not a continent, not
Yeah.
a country, the globe.
Globe.
This is something serious. You don't see sports being canceled. You don't see casinos starting to close up. You don't see restaurants and bars saying we're takeout only for no reason.
You
I
don't see
do
the
think,
Dow drop
yes,
9,000 points in
yeah,
2 weeks lightly.
this does not happen because of some random act of nature or something. No, this is something serious, and I think
What type of man-made institution would want to see everyone's 401k, including theirs,
exactly.
vanish? You know what I mean? Like,
It
these
doesn't make
guys
sense.
have been pioneering on trying to break 30,000 on the Dow. The last thing they need is a pandemic completely stopping everyone's supply chain. That is
100%.
the last thing they needed. They just erased 3.5 years of economic
Yes.
growth that, I'm
For
going to
that.
give it to him,
Mhm.
Donald J. did lead through in a very rocky fucking road, I will say, but did get it up there.
He did do it.
Okay?
He did, yeah.
And now he's right back to where Obama started back in 2016.
Yeah, we could do our own little podcast about Trump, but
That's
besides
a
the
whole
case,
other
bringing
thing.
him up, I think that he and our leaders, whoever make these executive decisions, I think that we are late. I think,
Oh,
I
wait.
don't know if you would agree, we are very backtracked. And not only have we had two countries we could have used as prime examples, but we need to shut down everything, in my opinion. I think us still keeping places where large groups of people meet up, like Walmart, people still sending kids to other children's houses for play dates is not a good idea. I think
That's the whole
having
point of
contact,
the
yes,
idea.
going. This is not a vacation. This isn't. I got work off. I could use unemployment. I could.
Yeah,
This is. You need to literally take this seriously and protect who.
there's a
I have
reason.
grandparents. You might have people that are immunocompromised or elderly. Like I said, it's my responsibility to take care of myself, but now it's your responsibility to help take care of me and everyone around you. It's not a
Mhm.
just me thing, it's an us thing now.
Yeah, it's enough
I
thing
don't
now.
this this thing's gonna get far worse. We are not nearly at the beginning, and as I
Scratching
like
the
to say it,
surface barely.
we are literally barely touching the surface. We are gonna see. I can guarantee, and hopefully you could too. A week or two, we're gonna see a lot of cases around us,
A
a
lot
lot.
more.
And if not,
Oh,
we
a
will
lot.
be infected. I know for a fact which is sad to say, but that is the statistic. One of us will probably be infected by the end of the year. I don't know
They're
when. I'm
calling
hoping not.
70%,
70,
so one in
right?
every three.
So it's gonna happen, but
Gonna happen.
we just
All part of
gotta
it.
be positive and just like I said, just live for the moment. Just hope
I
we
think
can just figure this out.
I think one more important thing that I'd like to add before I end it is it's a paradox that to worry about something like this actually lowers the efficiency of your immune system,
Yes.
increases cortisol, lowers immunoglobulin levels. So the best thing to do in situations like this, it's almost paradoxically, is calm the fuck. Just
Down.
kind of take a deep breath. Don't buy all the toilet paper. Buy enough toilet paper that you need for, like, a little while. Not
That's what I mean. Don't buy for like
years.
a whole year. We're not gonna be
It's not.
gone a year,
We're not going to
but
be in bunkers in the ground like this is the Cold War.
it's
Okay,
not a
between
fallout shelter. We're not
not a
preparing for a
fallout shelter.
fallout. Yeah.
Your house. Just stay in your house. All right. We're not telling you to go into schools and get next to someone on a cot that you've never met before and hunker down for 4 months. No, we're just telling you to go in your house and just
That's what I'm saying.
vibe.
And
Just
and
vibe in your house.
I think it's funny because if you look at people that interview people from infectious disease control, I think it's really funny because I think like same with our podcast, right? Like this little episode we did here about the Coronapocalypse. We're not here to scare you, to scare your wits. We're here to scare you out of your wits, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
We aren't trying to scare the crap out of you by talking about, oh well, here's the fatality rates, here's what's progressing, here's how virulent or transmissible it
Yeah.
is. We're just trying to scare you enough that you're like, this is actually an issue. I'm going to start washing my
Probably
hands,
stay home.
social
Yeah.
distancing. That's the point of it. That's the point of infectious disease control. That's the point I could say we're trying to make. I could definitely tell. So
I agree.
I mean, dude, this was a fun talk. Next
Dude,
time you come
this
in, we
was
got to
fun.
hang out.
Hell yeah, bro. You already know. We'll
Bro,
do
you
another
swear.
episode if anything.
I'm down. Doing a nice
Absolutely.
little update.
This
I
will
don't care.
change over the next couple weeks.
Well, like
Like
we said before, this
next
could
winter,
change
this will be
within
a
the next
full
3
other.
hours. Yeah, but this could
This
even
could
change
be
in the next 3 hours. We don't know. That
exactly.
is what's scary because we cannot foretell what is
It's
happening with this stuff.
the uncertainty causes fear. The fear of the unknown will always scare everyone. And it's just some people just aren't comfortable with not knowing. They need that
You know,
control, so they need to
right.
control it all. And you know
You
what?
know,
Sometimes you just have to
yeah.
let
I
Jesus
think is
take the
wild too.
wheel.
You
You
know,
know
I
what I
think is
mean?
wild
Just
too.
ride. What?
I said with like my psych background and stuff, I would love to see research studies, not even done on like, well, it has to do with the corona, but seeing, I guess, what's going on mentally. Because I'm telling
Oh
you,
yeah.
anxiety disorders are definitely getting created now. There's
Oh
something
yeah.
called an adjustment disorder. So an adjustment disorder is
Mm.
getting completely out of your rhythm or groove because
Yeah.
you're doing something else now. You're adjusting improperly.
New
I'm
normal.
telling you, so many people are going to have adjustment
Gonna be a
disorders. You went from
lot.
working 8 to 4, picking up your kids from at 4, maybe taking to practice at 6. People are now stuck in their homes. People are probably losing
Yeah,
their mind. Like,
exactly. They're losing their minds. They
here's
gotta
my
be
last
actually.
point I want to make with you too, though, quick before we get out. What do you think about these rumors, though? Like I was saying, with shutting everything down, National Guard and stuff like that. Do you think that's going to happen? Do you think it's not going to happen? What's your take on that? Quick.
I think that if this, as the rate of infection is going up, i.e., the rate of testing is going up, the virus has already spread. It's just a matter of how it's popping up now. Okay, because of that
Okay.
incubation time. Remember, we talked about,
Right.
if you were to have a baby, okay, that means that you guys had to have consummated and made that baby 9 months ago. So
Right.
if an incubation time max 28 days, that means that first case didn't happen then. It happened 28 days ago.
Exactly.
So as testing is coming out and the cases are going to increase, they're going to start really shutting it down. And I think it's good because you know what? We need to shut it down. We need to
I
be able
agree.
to say, look, let's stop it all. Because if we let the economy actually go its full course, unemployment's going to hit 20, 25% because everyone's going to get laid off. You have to put a pause on everything. Just pause it. We'll resume it. I think that this is actually this is good for the country to see that we need a fail safe. That at a certain threshold of people infected, shut down. Just shut it the fuck down.
Don't you
You know what I
don't you
mean?
feel like
So
don't you feel like that? This sounds really weird. Like it's a weird thing I was thinking about because I'm a cynical son of a bitch. Don't you think this is kind of like karma in a way for our country, thinking we're like the best? Bad stuff doesn't
yes,
happen to us. Does that make sense? We're not readily.
it's
We
poetic.
talk about emergency planning, but we were so bad. I'm gonna put that out there. I don't care if I get whiplash for it. We were horrible in planning for this. We are
It is
still not even
so
where we need to be. You know what I mean?
it's almost poetic that all that economic success, all that growth, just shot
Didn't
right
even
back
count.
down to
Didn't
where it
even
was.
count.
And didn't
Didn't
even
even
count.
count.
It
It's
just
just
gone. Just like hitting parlay after parlay after parlay, and then you hit
yep.
one and you lose all of it. Or like you're at the casino and you've been hitting 21, and you go to
Right.
roulette, 23
Yo,
black,
nothing.
and it
Yeah.
comes up 16 red, and you're like,
Fuck.
so wait, I walk away with nothing. It's like, well, no, you just lost it all. It's like I
I
can't
think
even get like $1. It's like, no, it's gone.
it's horrifying, dude. All I know
It's
is,
not
dude.
good.
Listen, all I know is it's like a zombie apocalypse, man. If we
We're
have to
just
make
gonna vibe.
factions, I'll find you in Philly. But dude,
Just vibe.
Angelo,
Find me in Philly.
I'll find you in Philly. Angelo, thanks, buddy. It was real.
Later, bro.
Be safe. Thank you for always being a very fun, intellectually stimulating person. I like our debates and
I
our talks.
try
So
my best, bro. Likewise.
listen, bro.
Likewise.
I love you, man.
Love you too,
I'll see
brother.
you on the
We'll do
flip
this
side.
again. Don't worry.
We'll do this again. We'll do an update. I'm not worried.
Oh,
All right,
fuck yeah, bro. This is far from over.
you could say that again. All right, bro.
All
Be
right, brother.
safe.
Later.